He humiliated me, called me a nobody, and left me shattered. But now the man who forced me into a fake marriage is lying helpless in a hospital built on my family's land. Every alarm screams danger, every second counts, and the truth I hold could either save him or destroy him forever. Welcome to Mr. James' family. I'm James, your storyteller, and here, every story is filled with emotions, twists, and moments that touch your heart. Sit back, feel every heartbeat, and let me take you on journeys of love, courage, and resilience. You're part of our family now. The hall was too perfect, too clean, too quiet for something that was supposed to change a life. White marble reflected the chandelier light like it wanted to blind anyone who dared to look up. The air smelled of imported flowers, flowers chosen weeks ago by people who would never need to remember this day. Cameras were already positioned, their red dots blinking patiently, waiting to capture happiness that didn't exist. Anya stood at the center of it all, not shaking, not smiling, just still. Her hands were folded neatly in front of her, fingers interlocked the way she had learned to do when silence was safer than speech. The dress fit her perfectly, but it didn't feel like hers. It felt borrowed, like everything else today. Across from her stood Elias Thorne. He didn't look at her, not once. His posture was relaxed, almost bored, as if this wedding were a meeting squeezed between more important appointments. His suit was sharp, dark, expensive. Every line of him spoke of control, of a man who never arrived anywhere unprepared. The officiant began speaking. Words about unity, about partnership, about forever. They floated through the air like dust, visible, meaningless, easily ignored. Anya listened anyway, not because she believed them, but because part of her needed to remember how false they sounded. When it came time to speak, Elias answered first. I do. 2 words, flat, efficient, no warmth, no pause, like approving a contract. Anya felt dozens of eyes shift toward her, curious, measuring, wondering what kind of woman marries a man like Elias Thorne. She said, I do. Her voice didn't crack. That surprised her. Applause followed immediately, polite and practiced. The kind of applause people give when they think they are witnessing something important. They weren't. The ring slid onto her finger, cold metal, heavy with consequences. Elias's touch was brief, almost reluctant, as if skin-to-skin contact was unnecessary for the transaction to be complete. He withdrew his hand instantly. That was the first truth of the day. The second came moments later. As the officiant continued, Elias leaned slightly toward her, not close enough to seem intimate, just close enough to be heard. After the ceremony, he said quietly, eyes still forward, the documents will be ready. Anya didn't turn her head. She already knew which documents he meant. You'll sign them immediately, he added. There's no reason to delay. She swallowed. The weight in her chest tightened, slow and deliberate. Yes, she replied softly. Not agreement, acceptance. Because the decision had been made long before today. Her grandfather's land had been discussed in boardrooms she had never entered, surveyed by men who never walked its soil, priced by people who didn't know its history. Elias knew its value, not sentimental value, strategic value, a single stretch of land, geologically rare, legally protected, perfectly placed. The only location that could support what he wanted to build without years of legal resistance. And Anya's name was the key. The ceremony continued, but time felt strange now. Slower, thicker. Every second dragged like it was resisting what came next. She remembered her grandfather's hands, rough, steady, patient. This land isn't just ground, he had once told her. It holds weight. It remembers. She wondered what it would remember after today. The officiant announced them as husband and wife. Flashbulbs exploded. Elias turned slightly, just enough to face the cameras. His smile appeared on command, sharp and confident, the expression of a man who always won. Anya mirrored him, lips curving gently, eyes calm. No one noticed how her shoulders remained tense. No one noticed how her breathing stayed shallow. They posed, they stood, they endured. The music swelled. And then, just like that, the ceremony ended. Elias released her arm immediately. "Come," he said under his breath, not an invitation, a directive. They moved toward a side corridor, away from the guests, away from the illusion. The hallway was quieter, the walls bare. Here there were no flowers, no music, just footsteps. A legal assistant waited at a polished table, documents stacked neatly, pens aligned with unsettling precision. Anya's eyes dropped to the first page, her name printed in bold letters. Ownership transfer, permanent, irrevocable. "This will only take a moment," the assistant said politely. Elias stood beside her, checking his watch. "Everything is prepared," he said. "Once you sign, my team can proceed." Proceed. As if something fragile wasn't being dismantled line by line. Anya picked up the pen. It felt heavier than it should have. She hesitated, not long enough to be noticed, but long enough for something inside her to shift, a quiet awareness, a realization that this moment would divide her life into before and after. She signed. Ink met paper. That was it. The assistant gathered the documents, satisfied. Elias didn't thank her. He didn't need to. "This was efficient," he said, already stepping back toward the hall. "I appreciate that." Appreciation, not respect. Anya remained where she was for a second longer, her hand still hovering above the table, fingers slightly numb. She felt empty, not broken, empty, as if something essential had been removed so cleanly that there was no pain yet, only absence. Elias paused at the doorway. "Oh," he added casually, without turning around. "There will be an announcement later. Just follow my lead." She didn't ask what kind of announcement. She already knew it wouldn't be for her benefit. Anya straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and walked back into the light, back into the applause, the cameras, the smiles, knowing she had just signed away more than land. She just didn't know yet what it would cost her. The dizziness didn't pass. It lingered, low and insistent, like a warning her body refused to explain yet. Anya adjusted her posture, forcing her shoulders back, schooling her face into something calm. Around her, applause rose again, louder this time, as if noise alone could turn discomfort into celebration. Elias hadn't noticed. He was already speaking to someone important, his voice smooth, confident, familiar, the kind of tone that assumed the world would bend because it always had. Anya stood beside him, close enough to be seen together, far enough to feel alone. Her heartbeat felt wrong. Not fast, not slow, just heavy. Each beat landed with intention, as if reminding her she was still here, still standing, still expected to perform. She focused on breathing. In, out. The hall shimmered briefly, edges blurring before snapping back into sharp focus. She blinked once, then again. The room steadied. No one noticed. That, she realized, was the most accurate description of her role here. Unnoticed, unconsidered, already fading. A woman approached, smiling brightly, eyes scanning Anya from head to toe, in the half-second judgment people thought no one caught. "Congratulations," the woman said to Elias, then added after a pause, "To you too." Anya returned the smile out of instinct, not warmth. "Thank you," she replied. The woman nodded, already turning away. The exchange left nothing behind. Elias leaned closer, his hand briefly resting at the small of Anya's back. Not tender, not possessive, just placed where it would look appropriate to cameras drifting nearby. "Stay close," he murmured. Press will want photos. Press. Not people, not guests. Press. They moved again, a careful choreography Elias had rehearsed long before Anya ever agreed to stand here. She followed, listening to fragments of conversation, donors, architects, timelines, words about foundations and structures that made something inside her tighten. Foundations mattered, more than Elias understood. She caught her reflection in a mirrored pillar as they passed. The woman staring back looked composed, elegant, powerful even, but her eyes looked distant. She wondered when that distance had begun. Someone handed her a glass of water. She accepted it gratefully, fingers curling around the cool surface. The simple sensation grounded her. She took a small sip. Her stomach turned immediately. Anya stilled. She lowered the glass slowly, pretending nothing was wrong. But her body was no longer listening to pretense. Another wave of nausea rose, gentler than panic, sharper than anxiety, something deeper, biological, inconvenient, impossible timing. She closed her eyes for half a second. Not now. She couldn't afford now. Elias was laughing at something someone said. The sound didn't reach her. It felt distant, like it belonged to another room, another life. A familiar ache bloomed behind her eyes. Pressure. Heat. She pressed her tongue to the roof of her mouth, grounding herself again. The room smelled suddenly too sweet. Flowers, champagne, perfume layered over perfume. She needed air. "I'm going to step outside for a moment," she said quietly. Elias glanced at her for the first time since the ceremony. Just a glance. "Make it quick," he replied. "We're about to make an announcement." There it was again, that word, announcement. She nodded. Outside, the evening air hit her skin, cool and clean. She inhaled deeply, greedily, as if she had been holding her breath all day. Her hands trembled slightly now that she was alone. She leaned against the stone railing, grounding herself in its solidity. The surface was smooth, cold, unyielding, like the man she had just married. Her mind replayed the moment she signed the papers, the ink, the finality, the way Elias had already moved on before the pen left the page. "You are finished," the moment had whispered. She closed her eyes. Another wave hit her, stronger this time. This wasn't stress. This wasn't nerves. This was something else entirely. Anya straightened abruptly. No. She rejected the thought instantly, forcefully, like pushing away a dangerous object before it could cut her. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. The timing didn't make sense. The situation didn't allow it. Her life, already unsteady, couldn't carry something else. She pressed her palm flat against her abdomen, not consciously, not dramatically. Just instinct. Nothing. Of course, there was nothing. Yet the sense remained, a quiet certainty trying to surface. Footsteps approached. She stepped away from the railing immediately, schooling her expression back into calm. Elias emerged from the doorway, irritation faintly etched across his features. "There you are," he said. "They're waiting. Waiting. Always." She nodded once more and followed him back inside. The lights seemed brighter now, the room louder. Conversations collided, overlapping until meaning dissolved into noise. Elias stepped up to the microphone. The room hushed. Anya stood slightly behind him, half a step back, positioned carefully where she would be visible but secondary. Elias's natural habitat. "Thank you all for being here," he began, voice steady, commanding attention without effort. "Today marks more than a personal milestone." Anya listened, her mind oddly sharp despite the haze in her body. He spoke about vision, about progress, about legacy. Not once did he mention partnership. Not once did he say her name. She felt something loosen inside her then, not pain, not anger, but detachment, as if a thread she hadn't realized was still holding finally snapped. Elias continued speaking, his words earning nods, admiration, investment. The room leaned toward him, hungry for whatever he promised next. Anya watched from her quiet distance, and for the first time since agreeing to this marriage, a single, unignorable thought settled clearly in her mind. This life will not hold me. The realization didn't scare her, it steadied her. Elias concluded, applause rising again, louder than before. He stepped away from the microphone, satisfied. He didn't look at her, not even then. Anya placed a hand lightly on her stomach again, slower this time, more deliberate. Her body answered with another subtle wave of discomfort. Confirmation, not proof, but direction. She exhaled slowly. Whatever this was, whatever was happening inside her, it belonged to her, not to Elias, not to his plans, not to the land she had signed away. Her gaze lifted, steady, focused. Somewhere beneath the marble floors and perfect lighting, something irreversible had begun. As applause filled the hall, Anya felt it again, stronger, undeniable, and in that moment, standing beside a man who already considered her expendable, she realized her body was carrying a truth that would change everything, whether Elias Thorne ever acknowledged it or not. The applause softened into scattered murmurs, the kind that followed a speech people admired but didn't fully understand. Glasses clinked, smiles returned. The room exhaled. Anya remained still, her fingers curled slowly at her side, nails pressing into her palm. Not enough to hurt, just enough to remind her that she was present, that she was real, that whatever had begun inside her body hadn't disappeared just because Elias finished speaking. Elias adjusted his cufflinks, already disengaging from the moment. For him, the speech was done, the outcome secured, attention captured. He turned slightly toward her, his expression neutral. "Stand straight," he said under his breath. "They're watching." They always were. Anya lifted her chin a fraction, her posture immaculate. She had learned long ago how to make obedience look like grace. A man from the event team approached Elias, whispering something urgently. Elias nodded once, then reached again for the microphone. The room quieted faster this time. This wasn't planned on the program. Anya felt it immediately, the subtle shift in the air, the curiosity sharpening into expectation. She sensed Elias's energy change too. This was the part he enjoyed most, unscripted control. "Before we continue with the evening," Elias said, voice smooth, confident, "there's something I'd like to clarify." Clarify. The word landed strangely. Anya's heartbeat slowed instead of racing. Her body went quiet, alert in a way that felt instinctive, like an animal sensing danger before it arrives. Elias gestured casually toward her. "This project," he continued, "has required absolute focus, hard decisions, difficult sacrifices." The audience listened closely now. Anya felt the invisible line forming beneath her feet. "I believe in transparency," Elias said, "and I don't want speculation to distract from the work ahead." Speculation. She didn't look at him. She looked at the faces in front of her, curious, impressed, unaware. Elias took a small breath, as if preparing to deliver something generous. "My marriage," he said evenly, "was a legal necessity tied to land acquisition." A ripple moved through the crowd, not shock, interest. Anya didn't move. "It has served its purpose," he added. "And it has ended." Silence dropped hard and sudden. Someone gasped. Another laughed awkwardly, unsure if this was some strange humor. Anya felt the words hit her body before her mind fully caught up. Ended. Here. Now. Not privately, not respectfully, but like this. Elias continued, unfazed. "I don't believe in pretending sentiment where none exists," he said. "Structural integrity requires honesty. Anything else weakens the foundation." Anya's fingers relaxed. Something in her loosened. not broke, but detached. She finally turned her head and looked at him. He didn't meet her gaze. He was already looking beyond her. To avoid confusion, Elias said, Anya and I will be finalizing our separation. Immediately. Immediately. The word echoed inside her. The crowd murmured now, louder, unrestrained. Phones lifted, whispers spread. Anya stood in the center of it all, remarkably calm. Not because it didn't hurt, but because her body had already warned her that something was about to change. Elias stepped back from the microphone, satisfied. A woman approached him from the side, tall, composed, impeccably dressed. Dr. Celeste Vance. She moved with confidence, slipping easily into the space beside Elias as if she had always belonged there. Elias placed a hand at her waist. Possessive, public. This, he said, smiling now, is Dr. Celeste Vance, a surgeon whose work actually builds futures. The emphasis was intentional. Anya understood that too. Celeste smiled graciously at the crowd, then glanced briefly at Anya. Not with cruelty, but calculation. Assessment, like a professional evaluating a case already closed. The audience applauded again, louder than before. That was the moment something inside Anya finally shifted into place. Not rage, not despair. Clarity. She felt suddenly very separate from this room, from Elias, from the performance unfolding around her, as if she were watching it all through glass. Elias leaned towards Celeste, whispering something that made her laugh softly. Anya heard nothing. She felt light, almost weightless. The pressure in her body returned, subtle, insistent. A reminder that while Elias was ending something publicly, something else was quietly beginning beyond his control. She took a step back. No one stopped her. She took another. Still no reaction. She was already irrelevant to the scene. Anya turned and walked away from the stage, from the lights, from the applause that wasn't meant for her anyway. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor, each step measured, steady. She didn't run. She didn't cry. She didn't look back. In a quiet corridor near the exit, she paused, pressing her hand against the wall as the dizziness returned, stronger now, undeniable. Her breathing slowed. This is real, she whispered to herself. Not the humiliation, not the betrayal, the life stirring inside her. For the first time since she agreed to marry Elias Thorne, Anya felt something powerful settle into her chest. Resolve. If he believed she was finished, he had miscalculated. As Anya stepped outside into the night air, her phone vibrated in her hand. A message she wasn't expecting, from someone who knew the truth about the land she had just lost. And the words on the screen made her realize this ending was only the beginning. The phone vibrated again. Not loud, not urgent, but persistent, like it refused to be ignored. Anya stood beneath the cool night sky, the noise of the celebration muffled behind heavy glass doors. Laughter drifted out in fragments, broken and distant, as if it belonged to another world. She looked down at the screen. One message, from a number she hadn't seen in years. Her throat tightened before she even opened it. She already knew who it was. The name wasn't saved, but memory didn't need labels. She tapped the screen. He's gone, Anya. Your grandfather passed away this afternoon. The world didn't tilt. It didn't spin. It stopped. Her breath stalled halfway in, sharp and incomplete. The phone slipped slightly in her hand and she tightened her grip before it could fall. Gone. The word felt too small for what it carried. Her grandfather had been the one person who spoke to her like she was capable, like she was more than someone to be married off, more than a solution to a problem. He had warned her, not loudly, not forcefully, but with quiet certainty. Men like him don't build, he had said once. They take. Her chest constricted. She hadn't gone to see him before the wedding. There hadn't been time, they said. Too much preparation. Too much pressure. Too much Elias. Anya pressed her palm to her mouth as grief surged, hot, sudden, unforgiving. Her knees weakened, and she leaned against the stone wall for support. The message continued. I didn't want to tell you like this, but there's something you need to know. He tried to reverse the land transfer before he died. Her heart skipped. Reverse. Her eyes burned as she read the next line. The lawyer said it was already done, signed, final. The air felt too thin. Her grandfather had tried to protect her even at the end, tried to undo what she had been forced into. And she hadn't been there. Anya closed her eyes, pain pressing behind them. She didn't cry, not yet. The tears stayed trapped somewhere deep, waiting for permission. She typed with trembling fingers. Why didn't you tell me he was sick? The reply came almost instantly. He didn't want to worry you. He kept saying you'd understand someday. Someday. The word cut deeper than Elias's public dismissal ever could. Anya lowered the phone slowly. Inside the building, applause erupted again, louder now. Another toast, another celebration. She stepped farther away from the entrance, the cold night air brushing against her skin. Each breath felt deliberate, heavy. Her grandfather was gone. The land was gone. Her marriage was gone. And something inside her body was changing in ways she couldn't ignore anymore. She felt suddenly fragile, in a way that had nothing to do with weakness. Her stomach twisted again, harder this time. She bent slightly at the waist, steadying herself, one hand braced against the wall. This wasn't emotional, this was physical. Anya straightened slowly. No, she whispered. She shook her head once, firmly, as if the motion alone could dismiss the thought. Not now. Not like this. But denial didn't stop the quiet certainty spreading through her chest. She had missed her last cycle. She had blamed stress, pressure, the chaos of everything surrounding her. But now, standing alone under the night sky, stripped of illusion, the truth pressed forward without mercy. Her body knew before she did. Anya walked toward the parking area, her heels clicking softly against the pavement. Each step felt unreal, like she was moving through a dream she hadn't chosen. She slid into the back seat of the waiting car. "Where to, ma'am?" the driver asked. The word ma'am sounded strange, too formal, too final. She hesitated. Home didn't exist anymore. "Just drive," she said quietly. The car pulled away, city lights blurring past the window. Anya rested her forehead against the glass, the cool surface grounding her. Her phone vibrated again. Another message. "He left something for you," it read. "Asked me to give it only if things went wrong." Her pulse quickened. "What is it?" she typed. There was a pause this time. Then, his old notebook. The one about the land. Anya's breath caught. She remembered that notebook. Thick, worn, filled with hand-drawn diagrams and notes written in her grandfather's careful script. "Land remembers," he used to say, "but so do structures." The car slowed at a red light. She stared out at the intersection, watching strangers cross paths without knowing how close they came to one another. "What else?" she whispered. Her phone buzzed. He said if Elias Thorne ever touched that land, he'd regret ignoring what was beneath it. Anya's fingers tightened around the phone. Not revenge. Something else. Something structural. Something inevitable. The nausea returned suddenly, sharp enough to force her to sit upright. She pressed a hand to her abdomen, breathing through the discomfort. This time she didn't deny it. "I need to know," she murmured. She leaned forward, addressing the driver. "Stop at the pharmacy." The driver glanced at her in the mirror, surprised but compliant. Minutes later, she stood under harsh fluorescent lights, staring at a shelf she hadn't expected to face tonight. Her hands shook slightly as she picked up the small box. She paid. She left. She locked herself inside the car again. Time stretched unbearably as she waited. The test rested in her palm, impossibly light. She stared at it. This wasn't fear. This was realization. When the result appeared, clear and undeniable, Anya didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She closed her eyes. A long breath escaped her, shaky but steadying. Yes, she whispered. Not in celebration. In acceptance. Her life hadn't ended tonight. It had split. The car started moving again, city lights fading behind her. Anya placed her hand gently over her abdomen, her touch protective now, intentional. Whatever Elias had taken from her, he hadn't taken this. As Anya slipped the test back into her bag, her phone lit up once more, this time with a forwarded document attached. Subject line, Structural Risk Assessment, TM Site. And in that moment she realized the land Elias had claimed was never as silent as he believed. The document loaded slowly, too slowly. Anya stared at the glowing screen as the car moved through the sleeping city, streetlights passing like quiet witnesses. Her thumb hovered over the file, hesitating, not from fear but from instinct. Some truths didn't announce themselves loudly. They waited until you were already standing at the edge. She opened it. The first page was technical, dense. Numbers, charts, cross-sections of land rendered in precise lines. To anyone else, it would have looked harmless. Boring, even. But Anya recognized her grandfather's annotations immediately. His handwriting was unmistakable. Tight, deliberate, pressed firmly into the margins as if he had been arguing with the paper itself. Her chest tightened. This wasn't a casual assessment. This was a warning. She scrolled. Soil density discrepancies, load distribution concerns, subsurface water flow miscalculations. Her grandfather hadn't just protected that land out of sentiment. He had studied it, measured it, understood its temperament the way some people understand weather. One line caught her breath. High aesthetic load with insufficient human flow consideration will create systemic stress. Anya read it twice, then a third time. Human flow consideration, not concrete failure, not collapse. Systemic stress. Her pulse quickened. She leaned back against the seat, the hum of the engine grounding her as realization began to form, not complete yet, but shaping itself carefully. Elias hadn't asked the right questions. He had built for appearance, not endurance. She scrolled further. Emergency access bottlenecks, supply chain rigidity, design prioritizing prestige over patient throughput. This wasn't about the building falling apart. It was about people inside it breaking under pressure. Her stomach turned, not with nausea this time, but with clarity. "He didn't see it," she whispered. The driver glanced at her in the mirror but said nothing. Anya closed the document slowly. The city lights thinned as the car crossed into quieter streets. She realized then how far she had traveled without choosing a destination. "Stop here," she said suddenly. The car slowed near a modest guest house. Nothing grand, nothing familiar, just somewhere neutral, safe from questions, expectations, and eyes that would recognize her name. Inside the room, silence wrapped around her immediately. She placed her bag on the chair and sat on the edge of the bed, phone still in her hand. The document felt heavier now, like it had weight beyond its digital form. Her grandfather had known, and Elias hadn't listened. She thought of the land again, not as property, but as structure, as responsibility. "You tried to tell me," she murmured. Guilt rose, sharp, unwelcome, but she didn't let it consume her. Regret didn't change outcomes. Action did. Anya stood and paced the small room slowly, one hand resting unconsciously over her abdomen. "I'm responsible now," she said quietly. Not to Elias, not to the past, to what came next. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the same contact. "There's more," it read. "Your grandfather tried to submit these concerns formally. They were dismissed." Dismissed? Of course they were. She sat down again, her jaw tightening. "By whom?" she typed. The reply came after a pause. Thorne Development's internal review board. Anya closed her eyes. Internal. Controlled. Filtered. Elias hadn't ignored the warning. He had buried it. The room felt smaller suddenly, not claustrophobic, but focused, like everything unnecessary had fallen away, leaving only what mattered. Anya opened her laptop, fingers moving with purpose now. She cross-referenced the assessment with publicly available data. Permits, timelines, architectural press releases. Patterns emerged quickly. Too quickly. Her grandfather's fears weren't hypothetical. They were already unfolding. Staffing models that didn't account for surge capacity. Logistics designed for prestige events, not emergencies. Technology layered without understanding how humans interacted with it, under stress. She leaned back, exhaling slowly. This isn't a flaw, she realized aloud. It's a design philosophy, and it was wrong. The realization didn't make her angry. It made her alert. She glanced at the small pharmacy bag resting on the desk. The test was still inside, proof of a future she hadn't planned but now had to protect. Her hand rested there briefly. I won't raise you inside someone else's failure, she whispered. Anya closed the laptop and stared at the blank wall ahead. She didn't need revenge. She needed distance, space to think, time to learn, a way to turn knowledge into leverage. Her grandfather hadn't fought Elias directly. He had prepared her, and she hadn't even known it. Outside, a car passed, tires hissing softly on wet pavement. Life continued, indifferent to endings and beginnings alike. Anya lay back on the bed, eyes open, thoughts steady. For the first time since the wedding, since the announcement, since the document was signed, she wasn't reacting. She was planning. As Anya closed her eyes, her phone vibrated one last time that night. A forwarded email marked Urgent. Subject, TIAM, Initial Operational Model Approved. She opened it and realized Elias Thorne was about to build exactly what her grandfather had warned against. Without knowing who now understood his mistake better than anyone. The email sat open on the screen, its clean formatting almost mocking in its confidence. Approved. The word glowed back at her as if it were a victory. Anya read it slowly, line by line, resisting the urge to skim. She had learned that danger hid in details people believed were too dull to matter. Operational timelines, staffing assumptions, digital workflow projections, everything was neat, elegant, optimistic, and fundamentally wrong. She closed the laptop without replying. Silence settled into the room again, thicker now. Not empty, charged. Anya stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city breathed quietly, unaware that decisions made in glass offices would ripple into lives that would never know who designed their suffering. She pressed her forehead lightly against the cool glass. So, this is how it starts, she murmured. Not with cruelty, with certainty. Elias believed approval meant success. He believed motion itself was progress. He had always mistaken speed for intelligence. Anya returned to the desk, sitting more deliberately this time. Her movements were slower now, intentional. The frantic edge of reaction had faded, replaced by something quieter and far more dangerous. Focus. She reopened the laptop, not to argue, not to protest, but to understand. She mapped the operational model against real human behavior. She imagined nurses at hour 14 of a shift, surgeons waiting on delayed supplies, patients moved too late because systems didn't talk to each other under pressure. She saw it clearly. Not collapse, erosion. A system that would technically function while silently exhausting everyone inside it. Her grandfather's voice echoed faintly in her memory. Structures fail when humans are treated like numbers. Anya's hand drifted again to her abdomen. The connection felt stronger now, not physical sensation, but awareness. A reminder that she wasn't thinking for one anymore. She wasn't allowed to be careless. Her phone buzzed, a new email notification. She ignored it. This time, urgency belonged to her, not them. She opened a blank document. No title, no audience, just space. And she began to write, not emotionally, not angrily, but precisely. She wrote about flow instead of force, about adaptability instead of rigidity, about systems that bent instead of breaking. Hours passed unnoticed. The city outside shifted from night to early morning. Pale light crept through the curtains, touching the edge of the desk, the laptop, her hands still moving steadily across the keys. This wasn't escape. This was construction. When she finally stopped, her shoulders ached and her eyes burned, but her mind felt clear. She leaned back slowly. "This is what I do," she said aloud, surprised by the certainty in her voice. "Not fight him. Outgrow him." Anya saved the document under a neutral name and closed the laptop. She stood, stretching carefully, respecting the quiet signals of her body. Her phone buzzed again, insistent now. She checked it. A voicemail notification. From Elias. Her breath paused, not from fear but disbelief. He hadn't called her since the announcement. She didn't listen to it immediately. She sat down first, centered herself, then pressed play. "Anya," his voice said, controlled but edged with impatience. "There are still a few formalities to finalize. I expect your cooperation. Call me back." That was all. No apology, no acknowledgement. Expectation. She deleted the message without replying. The act felt clean. Final. Anya moved through the room, packing what little she had brought with her. Each item placed carefully into her bag, as if order itself were a declaration. She paused at the door, hand on the handle. "You don't get to dictate this part," she said quietly. Outside, the morning air felt different, lighter, as if the world hadn't yet decided what it would demand from her today. She walked without hurry, blending into the city's early rhythm, people heading to work, vendors setting up stalls, life continuing with stubborn normalcy. No one recognized her. No one knew what she had been yesterday. And for the first time, that anonymity felt like freedom. She found a small cafe and sat by the window, ordering tea she barely tasted. Her mind replayed the operational model again, but now with purpose. She wasn't going to warn Elias. Warnings were ignored. She wasn't going to expose him. Exposure still centered him. She was going to learn more, formally, thoroughly, on her terms. Her phone buzzed again. A reply from the contact who had been messaging her. "Your grandfather always believed systems could be healed if someone cared enough to understand them." Anya stared at the words for a long moment. "I do," she whispered. She typed back, "I need everything he left behind. Notes, drafts, anything unfinished." The reply came quickly. "I'll arrange it." Anya set the phone down. The tea had gone cold. She didn't mind, because something inside her had settled into place, a direction not fueled by anger but by responsibility. Not to Elias, not to the land anymore, to the future pressing gently, insistently, from within her. As Anya stood to leave the cafe, her phone buzzed again, this time with a calendar invite she hadn't requested. Sender, Thorne Development, Legal Affairs, subject, Final Divorce Proceedings, Mandatory Attendance. The date was sooner than she expected, and Anya realized Elias still believed this story would end on his schedule. Anya stared at the calendar invite until the screen dimmed. Mandatory attendance. The phrase sat there with quiet arrogance, wrapped in corporate politeness, as if endings could be scheduled, as if lives paused neatly between meetings. She inhaled slowly, then locked the phone. "He still thinks this is a transaction," she murmured. The cafe door closed behind her with a soft chime as she stepped back onto the street. Morning had fully arrived now. Traffic thickened, voices overlapped. Life moved forward without waiting for permission. Anya walked with it. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate. Each step felt deliberate, as though her body already understood what her mind was still arranging. The legal building was exactly what she expected. Glass, steel, cold symmetry, designed to intimidate by appearing flawless. Elias's kind of architecture. Inside, the air smelled faintly of polish and restraint. Conversations were muted, careful. People dressed like authority, even when they didn't have it. Anya checked in without ceremony. No one recognized her at first. That changed when she entered the conference room. Elias was already there, seated at the head of the table. Of course. He looked up as she walked in, his expression shifting just slightly, surprise masked quickly by control. He hadn't expected her to arrive early. He hadn't expected her to arrive calm. "You came," he said. An observation, not appreciation. Anya took the seat opposite him, setting her bag down neatly beside her chair. "Yes," she replied. "I did." Their lawyers exchanged glances, tension flickering between them like static. Papers were arranged, pens aligned. The ritual of closure began. Elias leaned back, folding his hands. "This doesn't need to be complicated," he said. "We'll finalize today and move forward. Move forward." He always spoke as if direction belonged to him. Anya met his gaze steadily. "Forward for whom?" she asked. The question caught him off guard. "For both of us," he replied after a beat. "You'll receive the settlement we discussed. No further claims. Clean separation. Clean. As if nothing had been taken. As if nothing remained." Anya didn't respond immediately. She listened, to the room, to her breath, to the quiet awareness inside her body that had become impossible to ignore. The lawyer slid documents toward her. She didn't touch them. "I've reviewed the terms," Anya said calmly. "They assume I'm in a hurry." Elias's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You are," he said. "This chapter is over." Anya smiled faintly. "No," she corrected. "This chapter is unfinished." Silence settled. Elias leaned forward now, his patience thinning. "You agreed to the conditions," he said. "The land is transferred. The marriage is void. There's nothing left to discuss." "Nothing left." Anya placed one hand lightly on the table. "There is," she said. "Your timeline." The lawyers shifted uncomfortably. Elias's eyes narrowed. "My timeline?" he repeated. "You scheduled this," Anya continued evenly. "You assumed I would comply, that I would sign and disappear." She paused. "I'm not signing today." The words landed cleanly. Final. Elias stared at her, disbelief flashing across his face before hardening into irritation. "You don't have that option," he said. Anya didn't raise her voice. "I do." She reached into her bag and placed a single document on the table. Not dramatic, not aggressive, just present. Elias glanced down at it, frowning. "What is this?" "A request for deferment," Anya said. "Perfectly legal, based on personal circumstances that materially affect consent." The lawyer beside Elias leaned in, scanning the page. Elias's confidence faltered for the first time. "This is unnecessary," he snapped. "You're stalling." Anya tilted her head slightly. "No," she said. "I'm deciding." The word echoed in the room. Deciding. Not reacting. Not pleading. Elias pushed his chair back sharply. "What do you want?" he demanded. Anya held his gaze. "Time," she said. "For what?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Because this wasn't about negotiation. It was about reclaiming control over something he thought he had already finished with. The lawyers began murmuring. Technicalities, procedures, advisories. Elias stood abruptly. "This is a waste," he said coldly. "You're delaying the inevitable." Anya stood as well. Maybe, she replied, or maybe you underestimated how long consequences take to surface. They stood facing each other across the table. Once she had felt small in his presence. Not anymore. Elias gathered his papers with clipped movements. This changes nothing, he said. Sign later. Or don't. It won't matter. Anya watched him walk toward the door. Elias, she said. He paused. Not turned. Paused. You always believed foundations were about strength, she continued quietly. They're not. They're about balance. He scoffed softly and left without replying. The door closed. Anya exhaled. The tension she hadn't realized she was carrying released slowly, like air from a sealed room. One of the lawyers cleared his throat. We'll need updated documentation, he said carefully. Given your request. Anya nodded. Send it, she replied. I'll review it. She left the building moments later, sunlight spilling across the steps. The city felt louder now, sharper, but she welcomed it. Her phone buzzed as she walked. A message from the contact again. We found more of your grandfather's work. It's extensive. Anya stopped walking. Where? She typed. Stored off-site. He didn't trust offices. A small smile touched her lips. Of course he didn't, she murmured. She looked up at the skyline, steel and glass stretching upward, confident and unaware. Her hand drifted again to her abdomen, gentle, protective. This isn't about delay, she whispered. It's about direction. She started walking again, blending into the crowd, not running from the past, not chasing the future, but moving towards something solid. That evening, as Anya unlocked the door to a quiet apartment she hadn't planned on staying in long, a courier envelope waited on the floor. No return address. Inside was a single page, a diagram in her grandfather's handwriting, marked in red. At the bottom, one sentence, if this is ignored, people will suffer. And Anya realized the choice she had just made was bigger than her marriage. Anya held the diagram carefully, her fingers brushing the edges of the aged paper. Red ink streaked across the technical lines like veins, a visual heartbeat of warning. Each mark demanded attention. Each annotation whispered the kind of knowledge only someone who had truly understood the land could leave behind. She sat on the floor, legs crossed, the envelope still open beside her. The room smelled faintly of old paper and faint perfume, her grandfather's lingering presence in every corner. She traced the first line with her finger, memorizing it, understanding it. The paper wasn't just a blueprint. It was a map of caution, a hidden instruction manual Elias had never bothered to read. The red ink circled sections of the foundation she had already studied digitally. Subtle shifts, pressure points, load-bearing walls that weren't truly tested for human flow. She could feel it in her chest, the same tightness she had experienced when she first read the operational model. Her hand rested on her stomach. This wasn't just about her. This was about the people who would walk inside the building, trust the steel and glass to hold their lives. Anya's mind raced. She thought of nurses on back-to-back shifts, doctors running from one crisis to another, patients waiting in corridors because the systems weren't designed to serve them. Every flaw her grandfather had anticipated was already set in motion. A faint knock startled her. "Who is it?" she asked sharply, instinctively scanning the doorway. No answer. Anya grabbed the diagram and moved toward the small kitchen area. The knock came again, softer, more insistent. "I'm coming," she said. She opened the door a crack. A man in a suit stood there. Not threatening, professional, neutral. "Miss Sharma?" he asked. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady despite the tension curling in her stomach. He handed her a small device, sealed in clear packaging. "This was left for you with instructions to be delivered tonight," he said. "No one else knows about it." She took it without hesitation, noting the subtle weight of significance in the way it was presented. The man left without another word, leaving the soft click of the door echoing behind him. Anya returned to the floor, placing the device beside the diagram. She activated it. The screen lit up immediately, displaying a series of scanned notes and files her grandfather had hidden digitally. They detailed contingency plans, alternative structural models, even emergency protocols for scenarios Elias had never considered. Her fingers trembled slightly as she navigated through them. Each file was meticulously labeled, each instruction deliberate. Her grandfather had anticipated everything: aesthetic obsession, operational hubris, human error. He had prepared for Elias, for the world, for her. Anya's mind settled into a calculated focus. No panic, no tears, no regret. This was preparation. She reviewed every annotation, every note. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her mind. Structures fail when humans are secondary. Never forget, Anya. It is the people who give life meaning, not steel or glass. A plan began forming. Slow, precise, deliberate. She wouldn't just correct the model. She would build the systems from the ground up, invisibly, silently, before Elias had any idea. A soft knock interrupted her concentration again. "Stop being paranoid," she whispered to herself. The knock persisted. She glanced toward the door. This time there was no one. Shaking her head, she returned to the device. Hours passed as she traced every note, every red mark. Her eyes burned, her back ached. She barely noticed the time slipping through her fingers. Her mind had entered a state of complete immersion. She paused to breathe, hand resting again over her abdomen. The subtle movements of life growing inside her reminded her why she had to succeed, not for revenge, not for validation, but for something bigger, for the people who would trust the buildings and systems she would one day oversee. She realized then that Elias's arrogance had left a trail of opportunity. His lack of foresight, his insistence on speed over stability, had created an opening that only someone with foresight and understanding could navigate. Anya's chest rose with determination. She would not allow Tyam to become a monument to pride and failure. Her phone buzzed again, breaking her concentration. A new message. "I see you've received the inheritance. Be careful. Not everyone wants it used wisely." Her fingers hovered over the reply button. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stared at the diagram, the device, and the faint glow of her laptop screen. "Not for you," she whispered. "Not for them." She activated a secure folder and began transferring the files, encrypting them, layering protection after protection. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders fully, but it felt right, necessary, real. Hours later, when she leaned back, her arms ached, her eyes burned, but clarity had never felt stronger. The blueprint, the digital files, the warnings, they were all now under her control, and she understood her grandfather's final lesson. Knowledge alone is power only when it is acted upon. She looked at her reflection in the laptop screen. A woman changed, not because of loss, not because of circumstance, but because she had chosen to see what others ignored and act upon it. The sound of a car engine outside drew her attention. She moved to the window, heart tightening as a familiar black vehicle slowed near the building. Her fingers pressed against her abdomen again. This wasn't coincidence. Someone was watching, and she knew immediately. What had begun as inherited warning was about to collide with Elias's world in a way no one expected. Elias stopped a few steps away from her, the sunlight glinting sharply off his tailored suit. He didn't smile. He didn't gesture. He simply looked, eyes narrowed, body tense, every movement measured. For a moment the world around them disappeared. Anya's heart beat steadily, but her stomach twisted, a mix of apprehension and the cold surge of clarity. She wasn't afraid. She was ready. "You're still here," Elias said, his voice low, controlled, but with a tremor he tried to hide. "I never left." Anya replied softly. Her gaze didn't waver. I was never gone from what mattered. He took a step closer. A faint shadow crossed his face. Recognition, disbelief, perhaps the first crack in the armor he had built around himself. You have the files, he said, almost accusingly. Anya tilted her head, the red-marked diagram still secured in her bag. I have what should have been respected, what was ignored, what you refused to see. He stopped, a breath drawn sharply. You think you understand the consequences? You think you can manage it? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she considered the man before her, the tycoon who once reduced her existence to a signature, who thought buildings were more important than people, who mocked her publicly. I understand more than you ever did, she said finally. I've seen the mistakes you're about to make. I know the system you've built will fail, and I can fix it before it collapses on those who trust it. Elias's hands flexed at his sides. You're talking about my project, my life's work. Not yours, Anya said quietly, yet firmly. It's the people's work. They rely on what you build, and right now, you're blind to the human cost. A gust of wind swept between them. Anya's hair moved across her face, but she didn't brush it away. She held her ground. The faintest weight of expectation pressed in on Elias, the first time someone had ever confronted him without fear. You think you can come in and change things, he said, voice rising slightly, tempered immediately by disbelief. You were a placeholder, a signature, nothing more. Anya's chest rose steadily. You called me a nobody, she said, letting the words linger. And for a long time I believed you, but nobody sees everything. Nobody understands everything. And nobody prevents collapse, except the right somebody. Elias's jaw clenched, his pride, carefully maintained for decades, quivered under the weight of her words. He took another step forward, closer, but she didn't flinch. Not a fraction. You're reckless, he said finally, quieter, as though saying it aloud made it true. No, Anya replied. I'm precise, calculated, and I am responsible. He studied her. The arrogance he wielded like armor in public felt flimsy here, exposed. He searched her face, trying to find the girl he had mocked, the placeholder, the one he thought insignificant. He didn't find her. He found a woman with control, with purpose, with foresight. Someone who could dismantle his assumptions without raising her voice, without confrontation, simply by being herself. You realize, he said after a pause, if you move against the plans, the company will see it as sabotage. I realize, she said, and I also realize that if I don't intervene, people will suffer because of your oversight, and that's not acceptable. The wind shifted again. Papers stirred in her bag. The diagram seemed to vibrate with significance under her fingers. You think you're saving the building, Elias said, taking a sharp step closer. You're overestimating yourself. One miscalculation and— No, she interrupted, voice firm. I won't fail. Not like you will. You never understood that foundations aren't just concrete. They're human, and I am going to protect them. The distance between them was now less than a meter. Tension pressed on every side. He studied her face again, searching for weakness. There was none. You weren't supposed to have this power, he said finally, voice quieter, almost grudgingly admiring. You were supposed to be irrelevant. I wasn't, she said simply. And I won't be. Not anymore. The files, the diagrams, the warnings, they're mine now. And I choose to act. You don't get to control that. For a moment, Elias said nothing. His eyes flicked toward her abdomen subtly, as if noticing for the first time that there was life within her that he hadn't anticipated. Life connected to him yet, beyond his influence. You're changed, he said finally, almost a whisper. I don't recognize you anymore. Anya's lips curved into the faintest, unreadable smile. You'll learn, she said. "You'll understand soon enough." Elias's fists clenched at his sides. The tension in his body radiated outward, but Anya didn't step back. She didn't need to. The moment had shifted. Not him, not his building, not his ego. Her choices, her responsibility. She reached into her bag and carefully laid the diagram on a nearby bench, exposing the red marks, the instructions, the warnings for anyone trained to read them. "This is what your pride ignored," she said softly. "And it's why you'll fail if you continue blind." Elias inhaled sharply. He wanted to argue. He wanted to reclaim control. But the truth pressed in, a truth he had ignored for years, the one person he had underestimated now standing right in front of him, commanding it. "I need to see this," he said finally, voice lower, restrained. Anya nodded slowly. "Then start paying attention, or the consequences will teach you whether you like it or not." She stepped back, maintaining distance. Her eyes didn't leave his. The red markings, the warnings, the power she now held, everything shifted between them. For the first time, Elias was no longer the one in control. He glanced at the diagram again, and the first flicker of fear crossed his face. Not for himself, for the people he thought he had protected. And he realized, too late, that she had already taken responsibility from him. As Elias straightened, reaching to touch the diagram, Anya's phone buzzed with a secure message. "Immediate action required. Tiam is experiencing critical operational failures. Multiple areas report system collapse." Her gaze lifted. The moment had arrived, and Elias's empire was now entirely in her hands. The message pulsed on her phone. Immediate, urgent, non-negotiable. Anya stared at the screen for a long moment, her fingers lightly brushing it, as if touching it could somehow slow the cascade of events it predicted. Tyam, the building Elias had poured his ego into. The monument he had called his life's work. The operational failures weren't small, not minor glitches or human error. Multiple systems, supply chain, patient triage, emergency, response, were collapsing simultaneously. Hospitals weren't just technical challenges. They were living ecosystems, delicate, interdependent, unforgiving when disrupted. And now every flaw her grandfather had warned about was manifesting in real time. Her heart tightened, her abdomen pressed with a sudden protective instinct. She had to act. She grabbed her bag, slinging it over her shoulder. The diagram, the digital files, the encrypted documents, all essential now. Not for personal triumph, but to save lives. The drive to Tiam was tense, silent. City streets blurred past. Anya's mind calculated each step, each variable, each contingency. She reviewed her grandfather's notes mentally, overlaying them onto the failing systems she now knew existed. She arrived at the perimeter of the building just as chaos had begun to pulse outward. Ambulances lined the curb, emergency lights flashed, casting red and blue against the concrete. Staff ran with clipped urgency, faces tense, voices raised but controlled. Elias was already there. His eyes scanned the chaos, scanning her. Pride warred with panic in the way only someone unprepared for human error could experience. He approached her, steps brisk but hesitant. "Anya," he said, voice tight, restrained. This isn't how it was supposed to happen." She ignored the accusation, focusing instead on the building. She could hear the faint alarms from inside, smell the faint electrical tang of overworked systems, feel the human tension radiating outward like heat from an oven. "Show me the critical points," she said simply. Elias hesitated. Pride burned. But there was no time for ego here. "Right, there's the ICU supply chain. The surgical theaters are overbooked. Staff allocation is failing. Systems are out of sync. We've tried everything." Anya nodded, assessing the situation calmly. Then we start at the bottlenecks. Priority. Patients, staff, critical equipment. Not aesthetics, not schedules. People first. He blinked, startled at the decisiveness. The same woman he had once dismissed as a placeholder was now commanding attention, orchestrating solutions with clarity he could barely match. Inside Tim, chaos reigned. Nurses shouted updates, doctors scrambled between rooms, screens blinked warnings. Patients waited in anxious corridors, unaware of the structural mismanagement threatening the rhythm of care. Anya moved quickly, methodically. She pulled her laptop from her bag, setting it up in a small office overlooking the main floor. The encrypted files from her grandfather's archive became her playbook. Every annotation, every red mark, every contingency plan she had studied now guided her. Elias hovered behind her, watching as she restructured workflows, rerouted supplies, reassigned staff. He wanted to interrupt, to command, to assert himself. But each time he opened his mouth, she anticipated, corrected, improved. "Check this transfer log," she said sharply. "It's doubled patient wait times in Wing C. Reallocate immediately." A young nurse hesitated. "But we—" "Do it," Anya interrupted. "Lives are in the balance. Efficiency is mandatory. I'll handle the protocols." The nurse nodded, relieved that someone with authority and foresight had taken charge. Elias leaned closer, voice low. "You're fixing this faster than my team ever could." Anya didn't look up. "Your team didn't see it. They followed the plan. I'm following reality." Step by step, system by system, she imposed order on chaos. Supply chains recalibrated, staff reassigned, emergency rooms triaged, critical alerts prioritized. The building, once teetering on the brink, began to breathe again under her guidance. Elias followed her instructions almost religiously now, a reluctant apprentice watching the masterless tutor she had become. Hours passed, sweat beaded on her forehead, her arms ached, her mind raced, tracking variables, anticipating failures before they occurred. Every decision was a pivot between human life and systemic collapse. She paused only once, briefly pressing a hand against her abdomen, a quiet acknowledgement of the life growing within her, a reminder of why she couldn't fail. Outside, sirens began to recede as external emergency support stabilized operations. Inside, order gradually returned. Staff whispered among themselves, grateful for leadership that wasn't chained to ego. Elias finally exhaled. He began, then stopped. He looked at her. For the first time, no arrogance, only respect. And something else, humility. "You've saved it," he said. The words were grudging, minimal, but the weight behind them was immense. Anya stood, stretching slightly, exhaustion shadowing her face. "Not me," she said quietly. "The system saved itself when someone listened, someone prepared, someone acted." Elias's eyes flicked to her abdomen, realizing fully that the legacy he thought he controlled now belonged not to him, not to the building, but to her. Silence fell between them, punctuated only by the residual alarms from the hospital. Neither moved for a long moment. The air carried both tension and understanding. Anya knew this wasn't over. Elias hadn't yet admitted defeat. He hadn't yet reconciled with his own failings. But she had planted the first seed of truth, the realization that power isn't in ownership, it's in foresight, responsibility, and care. She leaned over the laptop once more, checking remaining alerts. "It's stable for now," she said, "but we need continuous oversight." Elias nodded slowly, as if absorbing the weight of her words for the first time. Pride no longer shielded him. He was raw, vulnerable, dependent on the one he had once scorned. Anya's phone buzzed again, another urgent message. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She opened it. The screen glowed with a new notification from a secured hospital channel. Critical update. Unknown anomaly detected in TIAM's main control system. Immediate intervention required. Her pulse accelerated. She glanced at Elias. His face was pale now, a reflection of the stakes he had ignored for too long. She took a deep breath. Calm, deliberate. This was her moment, not just to correct mistakes, but to assert the authority her grandfather had entrusted her with. As the emergency alarm blared throughout TIAM, Anya realized with a chilling certainty this anomaly wasn't random. Someone had tampered with the systems, and the next move would determine not just the fate of the hospital, but the lives inside it. Elias's eyes met hers, and for the first time fear mirrored in both of them. The alarms echoed through Tim, a relentless symphony of red lights and warning tones. Anya's fingers moved swiftly across the laptop, eyes scanning the code and operational readouts for anomalies. Every pulse, every deviation from standard procedure screamed danger. "Show me the source," Elias demanded behind her, voice tight, unsteady. He had never sounded uncertain before. Now each word carried the weight of someone realizing the empire he had built could crumble in an instant. Anya didn't look at him. "It's not a glitch," she said. "This is intentional." Elias stiffened. "Intentional? Who?" "Not yet clear," she interrupted. "But whoever did this knows the system intimately. It's someone with inside access, knowledge of both the software and the workflow. Someone like—" She paused, lips tightening. "Someone who wants to see this fail." Elias's gaze hardened. "You think? One of our people?" "Perhaps," Anya replied evenly, scrolling through the logs. "Perhaps someone orchestrated it to force chaos, to exploit weaknesses you never considered. And now, we're facing the consequences." She stood abruptly, the diagram from her grandfather under one arm, laptop in the other. "We need a perimeter sweep, security access logs, system overrides, physical and digital monitoring. Now." Elias followed her into the operations room, where technicians were already scrambling, their screens blinking frantic red warnings. Staff were tense, waiting for direction. The air was thick with stress, fear, and exhaustion. Anya stepped forward, commanding without yelling, issuing instructions that were precise and calculated. "Divide teams. One handles patient flow. One handles supply chains. One monitors anomalies. Communicate directly. No delays. No assumptions. Lives depend on it." Elias watched, astonished. He had never seen her move with such authority, such control in the face of an unstoppable crisis. The woman he had dismissed as inconsequential was now orchestrating the survival of the very structure he had built to glorify himself. Hours blurred into each other as Anya's methodical intervention began to stabilize sections of the hospital. Supply chains rerouted, emergency procedures streamlined, overworked staff relieved in rotations, patients transferred to critical care without delay. But the anomaly persisted. Anya narrowed her eyes at the screen, tracing the tampered lines of code. Each adjustment she attempted was met with counter-manipulation. Whoever had done this had anticipated intervention. "They're trying to outthink us," she muttered. Elias stepped closer. "And they might succeed." "No," she said firmly. "Not if we act fast, decisively." Her phone buzzed again. A secure message from an unknown source. "Stop. Leave TM. It's bigger than you realize." Anya read it, the words chillingly confident. She folded the phone into her pocket. "We're not leaving," she said. "And the bigger it is, the more people it will hurt if we step back. That's not an option." She turned to Elias, studying his face for the first time without lingering resentment, but with understanding. "You need to step back from control," she said. "Your presence is a liability. Let me handle this." His jaw tightened, pride warring with recognition. He wanted to argue, to assert authority. But deep down, he knew the truth. He had built systems for aesthetics, for reputation, for ego. He had never built them for real operational resilience. That required foresight, patience, and care, qualities Anya had in abundance. He nodded slowly. I trust you. The words were foreign, heavy, yet freeing. Anya didn't respond. She went straight to work, deploying countermeasures, isolating breaches, reinforcing network security. Every action was surgical, deliberate, precise. Yet the anomaly was more sophisticated than she had anticipated. Each patch she applied revealed new vulnerabilities. The saboteur was clever, patient, and ruthless. She could feel the pressure building. The hospital was functioning, but only barely. Every minute of delay could result in real human suffering. The thought pressed against her chest. Her hand rested briefly on her abdomen, grounding herself. "Not now," she whispered. "Not ever. We survive this," Elias observed, silent but present, seeing the meticulous strategy unfold. He had built empires with brick and steel, but he had never orchestrated human resilience under pressure. Watching Anya, he realized that true power wasn't in domination. It was in responsibility, foresight, and courage. Anya moved through the operations room like a conductor, her voice calm but authoritative. Lock the system down physically, verify every access point, run secondary protocols on the mainframe, override compromised modules manually, continue patient care, no exceptions. Technicians obeyed, motivated by the certainty of her command. Staff followed her directions without question, inspired by her clarity and determination. Time blurred. She lost track of hours, sweat streaked her face, eyes burned. The building seemed to pulse beneath her, groaning with pressure and human expectation. Finally, a critical alert appeared. Not random, not systemic, specific, targeted. Anya leaned in, recognizing the pattern immediately. Her breath caught. The saboteur wasn't just attacking systems, they were attacking control itself, trying to incapacitate her ability to manage the hospital. Elias's voice broke through the tension. Who would do this? Anya didn't answer. She didn't need to. She already knew. Someone close, someone with access, someone who had waited for the perfect moment to strike. Her mind raced, every possibility considered, every weakness analyzed, every person with access questioned mentally. "Elias," she said finally, voice low, controlled. "This is bigger than us. Whoever did this, they're watching, learning, adapting. If we don't isolate them now, the consequences will be catastrophic." He stepped beside her, silent, the weight of helplessness heavy on his shoulders. He had been reduced from master of an empire to an observer of survival. Anya's eyes flicked to the red warnings blinking on multiple screens. She drew a deep breath, calm, focused, determined. "This ends now," she whispered, "or people will die." Suddenly, the main control console exploded in a burst of sparks, screens flashing red and black. A distorted voice crackled through the hospital intercom, cold, taunting. "You thought you could fix this, Anya Sharma, but you're too late." Her heart stopped for a fraction of a second, and in that instant she realized the saboteur wasn't just inside Tiam. They were inside her every plan. The sparks still sizzled from the main console. Smoke curled upward, stinging eyes thick and acrid. Anya's pulse raced, but her hands moved faster, fingers flying over secondary controls, her mind tracing every sequence of commands she had memorized from her grandfather's archive. The voice crackled again through the intercom, distorted and menacing. "You can't stop me, Anya Sharma. Every move you make, I anticipate it." She gritted her teeth. Every instinct screamed that this was more than sabotage. It was a personal challenge. Someone wanted to humiliate her, test her, make her feel powerless inside the building that should have been a sanctuary. Elias appeared beside her, face pale, sweat glistening on his brow. This, this is impossible, he muttered. How could someone— Stop thinking like that, Anya said sharply. Her tone carried the calm of command, even as adrenaline surged through her veins. Focus. Every second counts. Every delay kills people. She isolated backup servers, rerouted systems manually, began running emergency protocols that bypassed the tampered modules. Sparks from the main console were still dancing dangerously near the exposed wires. She didn't flinch. Not once. A nurse ran in, panic in her eyes. Miss Sharma, patients in Wing D are starting to code. Ventilators offline, monitors flashing red. Anya's hand shot to the tablet in her bag, pulling up live feeds. I need triage protocol Delta now. Move non-critical patients to safe zones. Manual monitoring. I'll coordinate support from the central hub. No mistakes. Elias swallowed hard. You're doing it. You're actually doing it. Anya didn't respond verbally. Every action she took was precise, surgical. Technicians were redirected, nurses reassigned, auxiliary power engaged. The building, despite chaos, began to stabilize under her guidance. The intercom crackled again. You can't fix what's already broken. Every intervention you make creates new vulnerabilities. Step back, or watch the collapse. Anya's jaw tightened. No. We adapt. We respond. Systems fail when humans ignore responsibility. You underestimated the person capable of enforcing it. She traced code sequences, bypassed corrupted data, restored critical operations manually. Every line she typed, every command she executed, was a countermeasure layered over sabotage, designed to anticipate and neutralize the saboteur's every move. Elias stepped closer, eyes wide, absorbing her method, her strategy, her control. For the first time, he realized that building an empire of steel and glass meant nothing without someone who understood the people within it. Hours passed like minutes. Sweat-streaked faces, veins throbbed with tension. But Anya didn't stop. She moved from console to console, monitoring patient flow, stabilizing ventilators, rerouting life-critical systems. Then she noticed something, a subtle anomaly within the anomaly, a pattern repeating in the attacks. It wasn't random chaos. It was structured. Elias, she said quietly, look at this. He leaned over, following her eyes to the code. What is it? This isn't just sabotage, she said, voice low. It's a signature. Whoever did this left a pattern, a trail. They want me to see it. They want me to follow it. Elias's brow furrowed. Why? What do they gain? They want leverage, Anya replied. They want fear to dominate strategy. But they forgot one thing. She straightened, her voice firm, resolute. I don't respond to fear. I respond to reality. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Lines of code, blueprints, operational data. Everything she had studied, memorized, and practiced merged into a single coordinated effort. Every misstep the saboteur had prepared for was countered before it could take effect. The alarms lessened slightly. Critical systems were coming online again. Patient vitals stabilized. Staff whispered among themselves in relief. Elias took a deep breath. You've saved them. You've saved this building from collapse. Anya didn't smile. She wiped sweat from her brow and focused on the remaining irregularities. Not yet. They're still in the system. One miscalculation and the sabotage could escalate again. I need to isolate the source completely. She traced access logs, digital fingerprints, and system overrides. Someone had hidden themselves cleverly, masking their presence within legitimate accounts. A ghost inside the network. The intercom crackled, voice distorted, taunting again. You're clever, Anya Sharma, but cleverness won't save everyone. You don't know who's watching or what's next. Her eyes narrowed. I don't need to guess. I just need to act. She initiated a final lockdown protocol, isolating every suspicious connection, encrypting systems, rerouting patient care channels, and manually monitoring every feed. Minutes dragged like hours. Sweat ran down her back. Her chest ached. Her hands trembled slightly, but she maintained focus. Every decision had consequences. Every hesitation could be fatal. Then a faint ping. A signal she recognized immediately, an internal alert within the mainframe. The saboteur had made a miscalculation. Anya leaned forward, breath held, eyes sharp. This was her moment. The counterattack. She traced the misstep, cross-referenced access logs, and pinpointed the exact terminal where the tampering originated. Her lips pressed together in determination. "Found you," she whispered. Elias leaned close. "Who?" Anya's gaze hardened. "Someone I trusted, someone with access, someone who wanted control over lives without facing responsibility." The technicians froze. Staff watched, tense. Anya didn't wait. She moved to isolate the terminal, locking it down, neutralizing the threat. The system began to stabilize completely under her hand. The alarms silenced. Red lights dimmed. Monitors displayed normal readings again. Elias exhaled, shoulders sagging. "I can't believe this." Anya pressed a hand lightly against her abdomen, grounding herself, and whispered softly, "You don't need to believe it. You just need to remember it. Control isn't about ego. It's about responsibility." She turned her attention back to the console, scanning one final time. And then the intercom crackled, a distorted, chilling voice, sharper than before. "You may have found the source, Anya Sharma, but the network isn't finished with you." Her pulse quickened. The weight of realization pressed down. This wasn't over. A sudden surge of power hit the backup systems, lights flickering violently. Screens went black. Every terminal, every monitor, every life-critical system froze simultaneously. And in the silence that followed, a new message appeared across all displays. "Anya Sharma, you are now part of the game." Her breath caught. Elias's hand gripped the edge of the console, and Anya understood fully. The saboteur had not just targeted the hospital. They had targeted her. The silence was deafening. Every terminal black, every monitor frozen, the faint hum of the building reduced to nothing but the irregular drip of an overhead pipe. Anya's heart raced, each beat echoing louder than the alarms that had just subsided. The intercom's last message reverberated in her mind like a blade. "You are now part of the game." Elias leaned against a wall, jaw tight, eyes wide. The Tycoon, who once controlled empires, felt powerless in the empty hum of the building. He glanced at Anya, seeking guidance, certainty, any sign that they could regain control. Anya's fingers hovered over the keyboard of her backup terminal. Her mind raced, parsing possibilities, calculating contingencies. The saboteur had anticipated response, but she had something no one could replicate. Her grandfather's insight, her understanding of the human element, and her ability to think 2 steps ahead. "This isn't just a breach," she said, voice low, controlled. "They're playing with our priorities. They want us to panic, make mistakes. They want fear to dictate actions. But we don't respond to fear. We respond to facts." Elias exhaled sharply. "And if the facts aren't visible, if the system is dead?" Anya turned sharply to him. "Then we make the facts visible. We reconstruct, manually if we must. Lives depend on it, and this building isn't about you anymore. It's about everyone inside it." She moved through the operations room, her mind already mapping escape routes, backup power nodes, manual overrides, and emergency protocols. She bypassed frozen terminals, taking control of isolated systems that were immune to the mainframe's compromise. Staff looked to her, eyes wide with tension and a faint glimmer of hope. The woman they had once thought of as a quiet observer was now the anchor in the storm, the guiding force through unprecedented chaos. "Manual override on ICU ventilators," she instructed. "Backup power lines. Every essential system. Prioritize human life over protocols. Understand?" "Yes, Ms. Sharma," a technician replied, urgency and fear intertwining in their voice. Elias watched silently, astonished by her clarity, her precision. Every movement, every instruction was deliberate, anticipatory. He had built a building to showcase power. She was saving lives because she understood responsibility. Anya's mind tracked the saboteur's digital fingerprints. The distortions in the code, the subtle misalignments in the system's responses, the inconsistent override attempts, patterns emerged. This wasn't random, it wasn't reckless. It was meticulously calculated, almost like a game of chess. "They know our limits," she muttered, scanning her laptop, "and they're forcing us to test them. But this isn't their game. This is ours." She activated emergency protocols on multiple levels simultaneously. Life support rerouted, critical alerts prioritized, supply chains recalculated in real time, staff redirected to manually stabilize essential operations. Every action was layered to counteract sabotage before it could manifest. Elias's voice broke the tense silence. "Do you think we can hold them off?" Anya didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were fixed on the lines of corrupted code, the digital map of failure they had inherited from someone with malicious intent. She traced every link, every access point, every anomaly. "Yes," she said finally, voice steady. "We can. But we have to think 3 moves ahead, anticipate every escalation, and treat every action as a trap." The saboteur's voice crackled again, distorted and almost triumphant. "Clever. But not clever enough, Anya Sharma. Every choice you make has consequences, and every consequence feeds the game." Anya's gaze narrowed. "Consequences are a part of life," she replied calmly. "And responsibility is how we survive them." She initiated a sequence of manual overrides, linking backup systems that were previously dormant. Lights flickered, monitors sparked to life. Critical life support systems hummed, patients stabilized. The building, still teetering, began to breathe again under her guidance. But the saboteur's message lingered. Every step forward was calculated to provoke fear, to test limits, to strip confidence. Anya felt it, deep in her chest, the tension that threatened to paralyze even the strongest minds. She pressed her hand to her abdomen briefly, centering herself, not for pride, not for ego, but for life. The life she carried, the life inside the hospital, and the lives of everyone who trusted her judgment. Elias leaned close. How are you even thinking this clearly?" Anya's eyes met his. "Because I don't just think of numbers, or systems, or buildings. I think of people. That's what you never understood. That's why your empire teeters, and why I can save it." She moved quickly, eyes scanning screens, fingers typing commands, overriding sabotage, redirecting system flows. Every heartbeat echoed in the building as if time itself were compressed into the moments of life and death decisions. Minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by the subtle hum of restored systems and the occasional alert she neutralized instantly. Then she saw it, an irregularity in the last secured terminal. A subtle, almost imperceptible command sequence masked by legitimate system operations. The saboteur had left a trap designed to appear as recovery, but it would have caused cascading failure within minutes. Anya's jaw tightened. "They're clever," she whispered. "They want us to trust false security." She initiated a countermeasure, isolating the sequence and rerouting power manually. The monitors blinked back to green. Alarms silenced. Systems stabilized for the first time since the attack began. Elias exhaled, relief washing over him. You saved them all. Anya didn't smile. She wiped sweat from her brow. Not yet. Stabilized doesn't mean safe. The saboteur is still in play, and they know we know their method. Next moves will be faster, more aggressive. A soft ping echoed through the secure network. Her eyes narrowed. A new message appeared. Well done, Anya Sharma. But congratulations mean nothing. The final level begins now. Her pulse quickened. The saboteur's confidence was almost palpable through the text, every word designed to provoke, to unsettle. Elias's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, almost seeking reassurance. She looked at him, her gaze sharp, unyielding. We end this, she whispered, or lives die. Simple as that. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready for the next strike. The building hummed around her, alive, fragile, and depending entirely on her. Suddenly, every monitor, every system, every emergency line in Tiam went dark simultaneously. The building plunged into darkness, the silence deafening, the hum of life suspended. A single message appeared across all devices, illuminated in stark red. Anya Sharma. The game begins inside these walls. Survive or lose everything, including them. Her breath caught, and in that instant she realized the saboteur wasn't just outside the building. They were inside, watching, waiting, and the next move could cost lives. Darkness pressed heavily across TIAM. The hallways, once bustling with life, were now shrouded in silence, broken only by the faint hum of machines still running on emergency power. Red lights flickered sporadically, casting long, jagged shadows across the walls. Every door, every corridor could hide danger. Every second was a potential disaster. Anya's pulse raced, but her mind sharpened. She pressed a hand against her abdomen, grounding herself. The life growing inside her reminded her of what mattered: survival, responsibility, and the lives dependent on her. She swallowed the panic threatening to rise and inhaled deeply. Elias, she whispered, stepping carefully over a loose cable. Stay close. Follow my lead. Trust only the steps we can control. He nodded, his usual arrogance replaced by a quiet vulnerability. He had once thought strength was measured in money, property, and power. Now he realized true strength was courage in the face of helplessness and trust in someone who had proven herself indispensable. Anya scanned the terminal near the main control hub. Even with limited emergency power, she could access partial systems. Her fingers moved swiftly, tracing code lines, analyzing where the sabotage had penetrated. Every corrupted sequence revealed the saboteur's strategy: slow destabilization, psychological pressure, and calculated fear. They're testing us, she muttered, her jaw set. Every delay, every hesitation, designed to make us fail. But we adapt, we respond. A faint sound, a soft scraping, like a shoe against metal, echoed from the upper wing. Anya froze. She knew immediately. The saboteur was inside, somewhere in the building, watching, calculating. Elias, she said quietly, her eyes scanning the shadows. Don't speak unless necessary. Every sound gives them an advantage. He nodded again, sweat beading on his forehead. He had built empires with iron and glass, but had never confronted this kind of vulnerability. Watching Anya, he understood the difference between control over matter and mastery over life. Anya crept forward, moving along the wall, feeling for the emergency power lines she had studied in the building schematics. Each step was deliberate. She activated portable lights from her bag, faint but enough to illuminate the immediate space. Monitor critical patients manually, she instructed, already prioritizing life over any system or schedule. Her voice was calm, unwavering, though every nerve screamed alert. We cannot afford errors. Technicians and nurses, still on duty in the shadows, followed her commands instinctively. Her authority was not demanded, it was earned, proven in hours of crisis, in lives saved, in logic applied faster than panic. A sudden clang echoed through the stairwell. Anya's hand instinctively moved toward her side, adjusting a portable console. The shadow shifted, elongated, just beyond the flickering red light. She paused, calculating, listening, weighing options. They want fear, she whispered to herself. They want hesitation. I give them neither. The saboteur's voice crackled faintly through a hidden intercom, distorted but chilling. Clever Anya Sharma. But the final move belongs to me. Every life, every system, every heartbeat, controlled by my design. Her lips pressed together. Design is nothing without foresight, and foresight includes the human element. You forgot that. She moved through the corridors, checking rooms, rerouting power manually, restoring life support systems, and communicating instructions through handheld radios. Every patient stabilized under her command. Every machine she touched hummed with renewed life. Elias followed silently, awe mixing with fear. You saved them before even seeing them all, he murmured. Anya glanced at him briefly. Saving them is simple. Understanding who depends on you, that is difficult. That is why I survive, and you watch. Hours passed, each more tense than the last. Every shadow, every creak, every flicker of the emergency light could have been an attack, a trap, a misstep. But Anya remained steady, moving faster, thinking clearer, anticipating every challenge. Then she noticed a pattern in the anomalies, a subtle misalignment in access logs, repeated just enough to be overlooked. The saboteur had left a digital fingerprint, a human imperfection. She traced it, heart pounding, and realized the truth. It was not a random employee, not a disgruntled technician. It was someone high up, someone trusted, someone with intimate knowledge of Tiam's systems. Anya's eyes narrowed. Elias, she whispered, this wasn't just sabotage for chaos. It was personal. His face paled. Personal. Who? Before he could finish, the shadow moved again, sudden and silent. The saboteur stepped into the faint light, mask off, eyes calculating, cold. The final confrontation had arrived. You're clever, the figure said, voice low, venomous. But cleverness only delays inevitability. Anya's fingers hovered over her emergency console, ready to override, ready to defend, ready to save lives at any cost. I don't fear inevitability, she said, steady. I respond to it, and you've underestimated me. The saboteur lunged toward the control terminal. Anya acted instantly, slamming her hand onto the manual override switch. Sparks flew, systems roared back to life, lights flooded the corridors. Emergency power stabilized fully. The saboteur stumbled, caught off guard. Elias rushed forward, finally able to assist. Together they cornered the figure, who realized for the first time that their advantage was gone. Anya stepped forward, voice firm, unwavering. Tyam is not yours to destroy, not the patients, not the staff, not the lives inside it, and certainly not me. The saboteur hesitated, realizing their defeat, and in that moment Anya made the final call. She engaged the full system lockdown, isolating every unauthorized access point, cutting off escape routes, securing every critical patient and staff location. The figure fell silent, defeated, powerless against the meticulous planning, foresight, and courage that Anya had displayed. Elias looked at her, awe and gratitude blending with a humility he had never known. You saved it all. You saved everyone, and... He paused, voice soft, breaking slightly. Me. Anya smiled faintly, placing a hand lightly on his arm. You never understood what it means to build something that lasts, she said. It's not bricks or systems or buildings. It's people, care, responsibility. That is the true foundation. The saboteur was escorted away, emergency protocols fully restored, patients stabilized. Life inside Tiam pulsed steadily once more. Anya turned, looking out across the hospital, red emergency lights fading, corridors alive with human motion again, staff moving confidently. Her gaze softened as she touched her abdomen. A new life, her daughter's, her legacy. She had not only survived the game, but had redefined it. The nobody had become the cornerstone. Elias stepped beside her, silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke, voice humbled. I owe you everything. Anya's eyes met his. You owe no one anything. The lesson is simple. Value people over property, care over ego, foresight over pride. Learn that, and maybe your next empire will last. She walked through the halls of TIAM, the weight of the night behind her, the responsibility of tomorrow ahead. Strong, unyielding, unbroken. The hospital was alive, the patients were safe, and the woman once called a placeholder had become the cornerstone of survival. As Anya paused in the central atrium, a faint vibration hummed beneath her feet. She froze, sensing it, a subtle pulse, almost imperceptible. Her phone buzzed. A message appeared on the secure hospital line. You won this battle, Anya Sharma, but the world will always test the cornerstone. Are you ready for what comes next? Her breath caught, and she smiled, calm, resolute, unshakable, because she had learned the truth. No one could break a cornerstone built from courage, wisdom, and care. The game had ended, but the fight had only just begun.